You think financial power begins when your paycheck gets big, but by the end, you will learn the real price is not paid in dollars. You start as a 23-year-old first-year analyst, staring at 3 glowing monitors before the market even opens, with cold coffee beside you and $94 million of debt sitting behind every breath you take. Your salary once sounded impossible, until you see what the managing director earns in a single day. And suddenly the room feels much smaller than you thought. Level 1 begins before sunrise, when the city still looks asleep but the money is already moving. You sit on the 31st floor, building models for people who will never know your name. You format pitch decks, clean up numbers, chase footnotes, and teach yourself how to read a 10K fast enough to survive. Nobody tells you this is training. Nobody says this is where the machine starts carving you into something useful. Then one morning you find the first secret. A number is wrong inside your senior associate's model, hidden deep enough that most people would never notice it. The mistake is worth about $2 million. Your heart jumps, not from fear, but from realizing how much damage can hide inside a clean spreadsheet. You fix it quietly in your own file, say nothing, and learn the first rule: honesty matters less than knowing when to stay silent. Your days stretch to 14 hours, then 18, then numbers stop meaning anything. You learn which managing directors smile before destroying someone and which ones never raise their voice because they do not need to. You still have no power, but you start seeing where power lives. It lives in rooms you cannot enter, in calls you cannot hear, and in decisions built from numbers you typed alone after midnight. One night, after processing pieces of a $430 million deal, you look out over the city while the office sits empty behind you. Your work is in the boardroom, but your body is not. Your numbers are being discussed by people who will never picture your face. For the first time, you stop thinking about the salary. You start thinking about distance, access, and the strange feeling that you are closer to power than ever, but still locked outside the door. Level 2 starts 2 years later, when you finally enter the room beside the real room. You are not important yet, but you are no longer invisible. You sit with the associates, waiting for instructions, listening through walls, and catching fragments of language that decide who gets funded and who gets squeezed. Then your name gets called. And for the first time, you step forward with something to say. You are structuring now small pieces at first, but real pieces. You draft terms for a $180 million mezzanine financing and sit across from a CFO who expects you to break. You do not. You explain a covenant breach scenario like you were born inside the model because you have run it 40 times in 1 week. The CFO nods once, and that tiny nod feels better than sleep because it means you passed a test nobody warned you about. The deal is a leveraged buyout of a regional logistics company, and everyone in the room knows what will happen after closing. Jobs will be cut. Routes will be consolidated. Somebody in Ohio will get a meeting invite that changes their life. But nobody asks you to model fear mortgages, kids, or medical bills. They ask for EBITDA margins, debt service coverage, and downside cases. So you give them clean numbers, and the deal moves forward. You collect your bonus and tell yourself you only ran the math. That is how everyone survives this level. You separate the spreadsheet from the human consequence until the separation feels normal. Then you learn the second rule: proximity to capital is proximity to power. But it is also proximity to decisions you would rather pretend someone else made. And the closer you get, the harder pretending becomes. You begin building your first loyalty network. A VP brings you onto better deals. Another associate feeds you information before the room hears it. You return favors, protect mistakes, and learn that friendship is nice, but mutual usefulness is stronger. This is the first layer of the machine inside the machine. You are still climbing, still hungry, still telling yourself you control the game right before the game starts controlling you. Level 3 begins when you stop measuring your life in hours and start measuring it in deal flow. You manage 4 analysts and 2 associates, which means other people now lose sleep because of your standards. Their errors become your errors. Their exhaustion becomes your output. You catch yourself saying the same cold lines your seniors once said to you, and the scary part is not that you say them. The scary part is how natural they sound. You close your first transaction independently, a $620 million acquisition financing tied to European infrastructure in Southeast Asia. Your managing director's name sits on the cover sheet. Your name is buried on page 6. But in the meeting, the client looks at you when the numbers get complicated. They ask you the hard questions. You answer before your MD even moves. And for a few seconds, everyone knows where the real work lives. That is the shift at VP. You are no longer just support. You are a dealer. You can feel it in the way people pause when you speak and in the way juniors look at you like you hold the map. But power never arrives clean. It brings a new kind of vision with it. You start seeing the ethical architecture of high finance more clearly. And once you see it, You cannot fully unsee it. The target company has pension obligations that can be restructured after the deal closes. The acquiring fund needs a 22% IRR, and the pension restructuring helps make that possible. You know what that means for retirees who spent decades believing promises were real. Nobody says the word retirees in the meeting. Nobody has to. The silence around it is part of the language now. The deal closes in 11 weeks. Your year-end cut is $480 million. You wire $40 million to your parents and feel, for one clean minute, like the whole grind was worth it. Then you buy a 2-bedroom apartment in a city where 2 bedrooms mean you have arrived. You tell yourself the pension situation was already broken. Maybe it was. But the question that follows you home is worse: did you fix a problem or profit from one? Level 4 begins when execution is no longer enough. You are sourcing now. Not just running deals, not just saving broken models, not just carrying the room with preparation. Clients call you directly. Private equity shops route opportunities through you because you have never missed a deadline, never leaked information, never made the wrong person look stupid. At this level, reliability becomes a weapon. You manage a $1, $2 billion book of advisory mandates, and every meeting feels like a performance where confidence is the product. Your associate builds the model. Your VP coordinates diligence. You sit at the center and sell the story. You sell certainty to people who know certainty does not exist. You sell the future with a calm voice, because panic is expensive and nobody pays millions in fees to hear doubt. Then you learn the next kind of leverage. Not financial leverage, informational leverage. You know which companies are about to start a strategic review before the public does. You know which sovereign fund is quietly building a position before disclosure. You do not trade on it. That is too obvious, too small, too dangerous. But knowing changes you. It sharpens your timing, your language, your silence. Then you lose $2, $8 billion mandate. Not because your numbers were weak, not because your pitch was bad, but because another banker went to the same private club as the chairman. A club membership beats months of work. You feel the insult land in your chest, but you do not show it. You do not complain. You do not call it unfair. You join 2 clubs within the month. That is when you understand level 4 completely. The deal is never just about the deal. The spreadsheet matters, but the dinner matters more. The return profile matters, but the relationship decides who gets to explain it. You once believed performance would pull you upward by itself. Now you know performance only gets you near the door. Someone still has to open it. And they usually open it for someone they already know. Level 5 begins when the phone rings before the market opens and the number is private. You answer because people at this level do not call unless something is already moving. You manage 12 client relationships, each one worth millions in annual fee revenue, and the bank no longer feels like your employer. It feels more like a platform attached to your name. You are not working for the bank anymore. To these clients, you are the bank. You sit on an internal credit committee reviewing a $900 million revolving credit facility for a company with a weakening balance sheet. The credit is not clean. Everyone knows it. But losing the relationship would cost far more than the exposure, so you vote yes. Nobody calls it political. The memo calls it strategic. The slide calls it relationship preservation. You learn that most big decisions wear financial clothing over political bones. Your calendar stops looking like a human life. Singapore, Zurich, Abu Dhabi, Dubai. Dinners with ministers, sovereign fund executives, family office principals, chairmen who speak softly because everyone else already knows to listen. These are not dinners, not really. They are maintenance rituals. The relationship is the business, and every handshake carries more weight than most contracts you used to worship. You start understanding capital in a way analysts never do. Money does not follow returns alone. It follows trust, regulatory comfort, political alignment, old favors, and the quiet feeling that the right people will not embarrass each other. The best trade in the world can die without the right relationship. A weaker deal can move if the room trusts the hands carrying it. That realization makes you powerful and it makes you tired. Level 6 begins quietly without ceremony. Your identity restructures around the machine before you notice it. You miss birthdays, then anniversaries, then entire seasons of your own life. You tell yourself this is the cost of building something rare. But the truth is stranger. You are no longer just choosing work over life. Work has become the place where you feel most understood. Because outside it, nobody speaks your language anymore. There are 14 partners in the division, and now you are one of them. Your name is not literally on the door, but it might as well be. You have carried interest in the fund. Skin in the game, a phrase people say with pride until they realize skin can be burned. When the fund performs, you rise. When it fails, you bleed. Your mind stops chasing annual bonuses and starts living inside 5-year cycles. You lead a $4, $3 billion acquisition of a European energy infrastructure company. 3 months of negotiation. 4 regulatory jurisdictions. 2 competing bids. And a consortium built from your fund. A Middle Eastern sovereign co-investor. And a Canadian pension. Every call has consequences. Every delay has a cost. Every sentence you send by email is reviewed like it might become evidence later. The closing dinner is in London, in a private room that feels too quiet for what just happened. The handshake takes place somewhere that does not appear on normal floor plans. You structure the offshore holding through Luxembourg into a Cayman feeder fund. The tax efficiency is substantial. The structure is legal. Attorneys in Dublin and Singapore have blessed every angle. You sign without hesitation because hesitation at this level looks like weakness. The deal adds 180 basis points to the fund's net IRR, and your carried interest on this single transaction could compound into more than $40 million. You should feel joy. Instead, you feel a clean, cold rush, like you have crossed into a place where ordinary emotions cannot breathe. You stop attending most social events, not because you are too busy, but because the conversations are no longer useful. Then 2 calls arrive on the same day. One from a Gulf sovereign wealth fund with $7 billion seeking deployment. They want your firm to anchor deal flow, and only 3 firms will get that mandate. The second call is from a finance ministry, not a banker, the minister. You take both calls from the same silent corner office, looking through glass at the city below, and realize the market is no longer something you watch from outside. Level 7 begins when your decisions start moving other people's decisions before you ever announce them. You sit in a corner office on the 44th floor, no trading screens, no noise, no frantic blinking terminals. Just glass, silence, and a phone that connects you to people who move entire asset classes. You are not reacting to the market anymore. Your positioning, your tone, and your willingness to deploy capital become signals other people study in the dark. When you buy, others watch. When you pause, analysts write for weeks. You sit on 3 corporate boards, advise an infrastructure program connected to a multilateral development bank, and brief the government twice a year on capital market conditions. You do not call it lobbying. You call it advice. The distinction is technically real. The influence feels almost identical, and that is the part nobody says too loudly. The moral architecture becomes abstract at this level. Consequences spread across too many balance sheets, too many subsidiaries, too many regional offices, too many families you will never meet. You do not feel the layoffs downstream. You feel the fund return. You optimize the fund return. You tell yourself that is your role, and maybe it is. But something inside you understands that a role can become a cage if you wear it long enough. Level 8 begins when there is no longer an outside perspective. You are the perspective. Younger bankers quote your phrases back to you in meetings. Journalists build narratives around your cautious sentences. CEOs call before announcing strategic reviews because they want to know how the market will hear them. You once wanted access to rooms where decisions were made. Now the room sometimes waits to see what you think before deciding. Your social world narrows until it becomes almost perfectly efficient. Fund managers, ministers, family office heirs, sovereign wealth executives, chairmen, lawyers who know where everything is buried and never ask why. You can spend an entire evening surrounded by brilliant people and still hear no honest sentence. Everyone is polished. Everyone is useful. Everyone is measuring the temperature of your silence. Then a deal appears that looks simple from the outside and dangerous from the inside. A distressed credit opportunity tied to infrastructure assets in a country facing political strain. The public story is stabilization. The private story is timing. You know which lenders are desperate. You know which officials need credibility. You know which currency pressure has not yet become visible. The numbers are good, but the timing feels almost too good. You do not trigger the event. You simply position before it arrives. That is what everyone tells themselves at this level. You are not the storm. You are only reading pressure. You build the structure through debt, equity, and hedges that make the fund safe if the country stumbles. When the liquidity stress finally hits your fund gains, the press calls it brilliant risk management. You know the truth is colder than brilliance. Level 9 arrives without a title. There is just your name on a card and nothing below it. Senior advisor, chairman, emeritus, family office, principal, all technically accurate and none of them complete. You are 71 years old, 47 years inside the machine. Stakes in 5 funds, 2 private banks, and 1 reinsurance vehicle in Bermuda. You have more distance from ordinary life than you ever had from power. 3 central bank governors know you by your first name. Not because you command them, not because you control monetary policy, but because information moves both ways. Your committee deploys across sovereign debt, infrastructure, equities, distressed credit, and currency carries structures in 14 markets. Total assets under management are above $90 billion. The exact number is known to 4 people, and you are one of them. You no longer think like a trader. Traders respond to movement. You think in positioning before movement exists. 2 years before most people notice, you see a currency block facing liquidity stress. You structure accordingly, not to cause the fraction, but to stand on the right side of it when pressure breaks through. When it happens, your funds game. Headlines praise your foresight. And somewhere far away, ordinary people call it a crisis. The cost of level 9 is not visible from the outside. People see Access Wealth invitations, private rooms, and phone calls that move faster than news. They do not see how few people you trust. Fewer than 10, maybe fewer than 5, depending on the year. Everyone else wants something, fears something, hides something, or reports something. You have more access than anyone around you can understand, and almost no one you can tell the truth to. You sit at dinners where billionaires complain about regulation. Ministers hint at policy shifts without saying anything direct, and heirs of old fortunes act casual about numbers that could rebuild cities. You smile at the right moments. You reveal less than everyone hopes. You listen more than anyone notices. The strangest part is that you once dreamed of entering rooms like this, and now every room feels like another locked door. Then comes the meeting in Geneva. 4 people. No agenda on the table. No presentation on the screen. No assistants, no junior staff, no polished deck, no one pretending this is about process. You speak for about 6 minutes. Not loudly, not dramatically, just clearly. You outline risk, timing, positioning, and the quiet pressure building in places most people are not watching yet. Then you stop speaking and the room moves. Nobody applauds. Nobody reacts like this is cinema. At this level, power does not raise its voice. It adjusts exposure. It delays a public statement. It changes a voting block. It makes one call instead of another. You leave the room with the same expression you had when you entered. But something has shifted across capital you will never physically touch. That is when you realize the machine no longer needs to ask you for permission. Level 10 is not promotion, it is permanence. You are too embedded to be removed without damaging the system around you. The cost of dismantling your network is higher than the cost of keeping it alive. This is not power in the exciting sense. It is quieter, colder, and more durable, a kind of gravity. People do not obey you because they fear you. They move around you because the structure has learned your weight. You look back and try to find the exact point where you crossed over. Was it the $2 million error you fixed without speaking? The first CFO who nodded? The pension restructuring you explained away? The club membership that beat your pitch? The offshore structure that made everyone richer and no one responsible? There is no single moment. That is the horror of it. The machine did not take you all at once. It taught you to volunteer. You still remember the 23-year-old with $94 million in debt? Cold coffee, 3 monitors, and a body running on panic and ambition. He thought this was about salary. He thought if he worked hard enough, the system would reward what he put in. He did not understand that the system rewards usefulness, discretion, relationships, timing, and the ability to carry consequences without letting them slow the deal. Somewhere in a glass tower in a city that never stops moving, another 23-year-old opens a terminal for the first time. His badge says Analyst First Year. He looks at the market like it is a battlefield he can conquer. He feels the same hunger you once felt, the same private promise that he will be different, cleaner, smarter, less compromised. The terminal blinks. The market opens, and the machine makes room for him. He will learn to read a 10K in 40 minutes. He will find errors that could ruin deals. He will sit outside boardrooms and mistake proximity for belonging. He will get his first bonus and call it freedom. He will meet people who teach him that loyalty is strategy, silence is currency, and access is never given for free. He will rise level by level, winning just enough to ignore what each win costs him. And one day, if he climbs far enough, he may sit in a quiet room with no title under his name, speaking for 6 minutes while other people reshape the world around his words. By then, he will understand the final rule of financial power: the higher you rise, the less the system feels like something you entered, and the more it feels like something that entered you. The market opens again and the machine takes another step forward.